If you want to apply to grad school for your MFA in fine art, illustration, design, anything right after you graduate, apply. Do it. Doesn't mean you have to go. Hello and welcome back to my channel. My name is Elyse Andrews and I make videos every Tuesday talking about my post-grad stresses and successes. In today's video, I'm going to tell you about my experience applying to 2 MFA programs for design and illustration and how I applied to them and how I felt about this process and why I decided not to go even though I did get accepted to one of them. So let's just get into it. So if you didn't know, an MFA in fine arts and maybe like painting, design, illustration, graphic design, it's not required to have success in the field. It's not like an MBA that can really get you a lot further, but it's kind of like an extra academic step where you can concentrate on a specific body of work or idea in a very dedicated setting. It's not like becoming a doctor where you have to go to med school to be able to become a doctor. You can become a graphic designer, honestly, without a degree. A lot of people do decide to do an MFA though, because it's a nice time to explore the academic world of art and really study it in a different way than before. And a lot of people take advantage of it to spend time on specific projects. So because of this, a lot of artists wait until they're, in their later 20s or maybe 30s or 40s, 50s, even beyond, before they actually go in to do their MFA. But I guess a small bit also do end up going right after they graduate from college. And most of my professors honestly suggested that we don't go into applying right away. These were my art professors, but they suggested waiting to see before you applied to grad school. A little background on me and what I wanted out of grad school. So I just graduated from Trinity University with a triple major in art, communication, and Spanish. And around the end of my time at school, I became very interested in more commercial illustration as well as graphic design, which is mostly what I'm pursuing right now. The reason why I wanted to give grad school a shot was because I, like I said, studied art, communication, and Spanish, and I kind of have a very good, strong, broad foundation of, each category, but I wanted to find a way to sharpen my pencil, sharpen my skills, and become more specialized in an area like graphic design or illustration. And so for me, grad school was more about a way to build skills as well as develop a long-term project. But the thing was, I didn't really have a super solid idea of what that long-term project would look like. Additionally, I would like to eventually become an art director, creative director, or something that involves a lot of leadership, whether that be, being a professor or being someone like the greats who I look up to so much, like Debbie Millman and Paula Scher, people like that. And I want to be a design educator or a leader in the design field of some sort in the future. So for me, an MFA is something that aligns with my future career goals. So you may be saying, Elyse, it sounds like you weren't totally sure on certain parts of grad school that are really important to be sure about before you apply, but it's fine. So the 2 schools that I applied to were UT Austin's MFA in design and SCAD's MFA program in illustration. I selected 2 schools in the South, UT, which is in Austin, and SCAD, which is in Savannah, because I wasn't totally sure if I wanted to go to grad school, and if I could be talked into it, then I wanted to do something that was a little closer to home. Austin would have been great, and Savannah wouldn't have been too far of a move. But when I eventually do apply again, I would like to broaden my horizons, maybe looking at Yale, looking at Parsons, RISD, SVA. SVA's Masters in Branding is my dream. Can I just manifest that now? I also had somewhat demanding of a senior year, so that's why I only applied to 2 schools. It's what I could handle. And I didn't want to apply to too many schools if I was not, like 1000% on board with I have to go to grad school right after I graduate. So, but for me, the application process was relatively simple. I reached out to my art professors, my comm professors, and also one of my employers, and I asked them to write letters of recommendation for me, and they were very happy to do that. Make sure you have good relationships with your professors before you ask, and if you're thinking about grad school a lot earlier, make sure to cultivate really good relationships with these people. I also had to upload my portfolios via SlideRoom. One of them was a little different. For SCAD, it was definitely more obviously fine art, illustration related, and for UT, it was kind of a PDF that showed off my graphic design skills, but also showing off my design within it, if that makes sense. I also had to write a statement of purpose for both schools, and for SCAD, I had to answer a few extra questions. And after that, I waited and the results eventually came in. I was denied from UT Austin's program, but I was accepted and given a scholarship to SCAD's illustration MFA. So now I'm going to share some tips that I picked up along the way. Biggest thing, do not do it. So for most MFA programs in art stuff, you probably don't have to take it. So just don't take it. It hurt my brain. The reason why I did it was because there was a chance of getting some extra money from SCAD if I got this pretty high score on it, which, you know, I did really well on the ACT. I'm a very good test taker. So I thought, oh, GRE, easy. No, even though I had a really good score every time I took practice tests, it just wasn't high enough, and that was putting a lot of stress on me, and I had to do an honors thesis and apply to grad school normally. So I just decided not to take the GRE. So listen to me. If the financial reward for taking the GRE and getting a high score on it is really important to you and can really help you pay for your school and you really want to do it, then do the GRE. But keep this in mind that if it's really not totally necessary, you will be fine not taking the GRE. Focus more on making really good art. If you are applying and it seems like you don't have the industry experience to apply, but you know, you're like, I really want to go into grad school right after I graduated, don't worry. For SCAD, I needed a lot more industry experience than I actually put in my portfolio, and I got in. I'm not saying this will work for everyone, but I think it's kind of like with job applications. Even if you are not meeting every single one of the requirements for the job application, you still can be a very talented, successful candidate, and you should apply anyway. So I would also recommend going to informational sessions, even though I was a little nervous and intimidated about doing it at first. It was really interesting to see at the UT one, the really different group of people in the room and hearing about their backgrounds and how different we all were. The next thing is to be clear on why you want to go and what specific projects you would want to work on. I think for mine, I ended up talking more about focusing on maximalism. I think I could have been more narrow with my focus, but that's definitely a theme that I'm interested in my art and illustration and design right now. But I think I need to do a little bit more work to really fine-tune my thoughts on it. The next thing I would suggest is to ask a variety of different people to read over your letters. I had two friends from my sorority that also happened to be writing center tutors. We were a very smart bunch. And I asked two of them to read my statements of purpose. And I also asked one of my best friends, Susie, to read over it. And I wish that I would have also asked my art professors to take a look at it, and maybe my one graphic design professor that I had. But overall, don't be afraid to show people your statement of purpose. You're in college, you're almost done with college, or maybe you've just graduated. You've been showing people your writing and getting feedback on it for years. Don't be afraid to ask for help. And the last thing is to set some guidelines for yourself. I would suggest understanding how much debt you're willing to go into to go to grad school, or if you don't have to go into debt, that's great. But if, you know, moving would be an expensive thing for you to do, or very difficult for you to do, or the time commitment would be a lot, just before you send in your applications, know what you want to get from grad school, know what you're willing to put into it, and know what you're willing to kind of put up with for the next few years. Whenever I got my SCAD acceptance, I was really excited about it and tried to think of ways to, you know, make it work. And I, again, got a very generous amount from them, but it just was not what I was willing to take on right after graduating college. Why I didn't go? I do think that I need to take some time to work on myself and my art and understand what exactly I want to do in this creative career that I am working on, whether it's doing illustration or graphic design or more fine art. I really need to sit with myself and do that and make more bodies of work and understand what specifically I'm so interested in that I would want to get my master's working on a project on it. Another reason why I decided not to go is obviously the financial aspect of it. I just wasn't totally sure about taking on that kind of debt right after college, and knowing that any of the fields that I'm exploring, it's not a necessity to get an MFA. I just kind of decided to wait. And the last reason, I guess, why I'm glad I didn't go to grad school is because of the pandemic, because starting grad school during this time, if you're doing it bless you, it seems really difficult and I don't want to do things online. And also moving to Savannah right now would just not be, it wouldn't be it for me. So, but now you might be wondering, all this hard work that you put into it and you said no and you weren't even sure about it in the first place, what's the point? Why, what? Here's why I am glad that I applied in the first place. So you may think I'm dumb for not knowing totally what I wanted to do before applying, but for me, it was just my way of knowing what opportunities lied ahead for me, and it was my way of exploring them. And I also gained a lot of other benefits from applying, like getting in felt really good. Getting accepted to an MFA program, me, this little bean who just graduated college or who's about to graduate, hearing that a school wanted to take me on for a master's in fine arts program, that felt good. So if nothing else, it raised my ego a little bit. Also, because of it, I do really feel more confident in myself as an artist and in my abilities to explain what I'm interested in, what I'm making my work about, and just kind of talking about myself. And that was another skill that I really worked on a lot whenever I was applying to grad school, was, writing all of these statements of purpose and, answering these extra questions and curating a portfolio and talking about myself. All of that was so important for me to be able to know who I am as an artist, and I grew a lot from that. When I eventually do apply to an MFA program, which probably will happen, I will feel comfortable in that process. I've already known what's going on. I've already stressed about it. And when I do it again, I will be, ready to do it. I also wrote that statement of purpose, and from it, I've been able to pull a lot of good information for cover letters I've written for jobs and for, things about my art that I have written. So now I have a very great statement of purpose that I can use for other situations, or I can pull from for cover letters for jobs. Another reason why I'm glad I didn't go is, unlike maybe some other fields as well, I'm only going to get better every single year that I am working on becoming an artist. I'm only going to grow. So in conclusion, I'm really glad that I applied, and I hope that you are not, afraid to apply as well if it's something you're looking into. Whenever I started my process of applying to grad schools, I had a very hard time finding information about applying to MFA programs right after you graduate. Probably because it's not that common or recommended to do so, but I just wanted to know. I really wanted to know, so hopefully if you found this video, it can help you out a little bit. Let me know in the comments if you're experiencing anything like I did. So, goodbye.